Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here today. This is going to be hard, or challenging is the better word. My name is Stephen Seals, and I'll talk a little bit more about who I am and this wonderful person who's sitting here beside me. But I first want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for sitting and talking with us, and for trying to learn more, trying to understand, and trying to make this world a better place. We're going to have a conversation here today. You all please feel free to have conversations with yourselves on social media about what we talk about today when it comes to this work and with community. But the thing that I do want to say as you're having these conversations with each other, I'm going to give you spoilers to the end of this, which is everyone has a humanity to them. Everyone has a story, and we don't know what those stories are. But the thing that we can say, no matter who you are, there is a humanity to you. You are a mother, a father, a daughter, an uncle, a lover. Everyone. And I ask that you remember that when you interact with each other, whether it's out in the real world or whether it's in cyberspace where you can be anonymous. We all still have a humanity, and it matters. You matter. So keep that in mind as we have these conversations. We're not going to do any Q&A for this particular conversation. We just want to be able to have our conversation and let you be a fly on the wall for that. But if you all enjoy this and want to do it more, have more of these conversations, I could not imagine doing them without hearing from you all as well. Seeing what you think, hearing what you feel. We're not all going to agree, and we don't all have to agree, but the only way that this country is truly going to meet what it was originally intended to be is for all of us to understand. And you understand by wanting to learn more and know more. And so today you're going to know more and find out more about the foundation, Colonial Williamsburg Foundation, more about the work that we do, but even more importantly, why we do that work. And even more important than that, why is this work important? But first, you should probably know who we are and why we're here in the first place. My name is Stephen Seals. I play or portray one of the nation builder characters here, James Lafayette, who was a real person. He was a spy during the American Revolution. I also do community outreach for the foundation to a small degree, as well as program development, which I've been doing with the foundation for a number of years, specifically at one point for African American and religion interpretation, but now just for the historic area as a whole with a number of other individuals. I've now been at the foundation. June 1st was my 12-year anniversary. So a job that was meant to only last 2 years has lasted 12, and hopefully much longer, as I'll hopefully get into later. But I started off as an interpreter, became a supervisor, and now a manager. And that's where I find myself today here in Colonial Williamsburg. Grew up in West Virginia. But I would love for Janice here to also introduce herself and just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at the foundation.
Good afternoon. My name is Janice Canaday, and I am currently a supervisor of the Randolph House here in Colonial Williamsburg. I originally came here to work full-time in 2007 as an interpreter for school and groups. Before then, I was part of evening programming at Carter's Grove when we still own that property with my children. And so if I were to count the years that I've been here and my children have been here, it's been about 26 years, my relationship with Colonial Williamsburg.
And the other reason why you're the person sitting across from me is I wanted to ask about your connections to the community and your history with this community, with your ancestors. Would you be comfortable kind of unpacking a little bit of that too for everyone?
I was born here. I was born in what they call the bottom. If you don't know what the bottom is, where the train station is, the Amtrak train station is here in Williamsburg, that's where I was born. Right there on the corner where the city municipal building sits now. The corner of that property was my mother's property. So she lived here in the city. And I was born there, and we didn't call it the bottom, but the folks up on the hill called it the bottom. But that's okay, because the bottom is a place where you can push off. And so that's what I've always told myself and the way I've thought about it. But as I said, that's where I was born, where I grew up. I've gone to school here. I started at Bruton Heights, and eventually did a year at Matthew Whaley and Berkeley, James Blair, and even Lafayette High School. So I've been here in Williamsburg all my life, and I have raised 6 children here in Williamsburg. But Williamsburg is a good place to call home. But Williamsburg was not a place without its own trials. My family has always been here. As a child growing up, I didn't come to Colonial Williamsburg to visit as people do today. However, my stepfather worked here in the landscaping department, as well as my brothers, all of my brothers who actually worked here, and my sisters, and other family members. And when I think about my family here in Williamsburg, that includes a whole lot of families that are still here. And a lot of them are still working here within this foundation. I've always felt drawn to this place, even though we didn't visit. You heard about it in school. I don't have a memory of too many trips or field trips here. But always walking past here or driving by or coming out to see the fireworks. That was the extent of my participation here. But as I grew up and started using this place as a space to walk around, I always felt drawn to Colonial Williamsburg. Felt as though there was a connection with me and Colonial Williamsburg, but just didn't know where it began or what it was about, or even if I was just imagining it. But as I have begun to research and delve into my family, I am Williamsburg, and my family has always been. So this community is very important to me. This is a very diverse community. And when I think about the importance of Colonial Williamsburg and telling the whole story today, I'm pushed by the fact that it has to be, because folks tend to think of these communities as having been built by the enslaved and free blacks or African Americans that were here, and that's very, very true. But the reason that it's so important to today, and I hope I'm not going too far.
No, that's fine. Please go for it.
Is that those communities are still here. There has not been a disconnect, maybe just in the way that we view it. But if you think about the 1600s, when the first Africans came to these shores, not that that's where our history starts, but when you think about our place here, we cleaned and hauled and scraped and helped to build what was the 18th century community. And coming forward in time, when this was no longer the capital city, but folks were living here in this deserted place, it was those families that remained who continued to restore or help with the restoration of Colonial Williamsburg. And to present day, still no disconnect. Those families are here working at the foundation, in the hotels, in the restaurants, and the trade shops. So they're still here. They never left. They are still here. And so it's very important to tell the story, to make sure we know that they weren't non-essential and that their contributions were not non-essential, but were a major, major part of the story that we attempt to tell today and we should be telling.
So you already started answering the next question that I was going to ask, but we can go even deeper into it, because you said that your job currently is the supervisor of the Peyton Randolph House. So that's your job, but what's your job?
My job is to find a way, as I learn, to take that knowledge and help my colleagues to tell the story, the whole story, about our founding fathers and those extended people that were part of the same canvas that they were painting. That these people were a visible part of what was going on, and that there's no space, no place, no event that they were excluded from. They were always here, and they were always part of the community. Whether they were acknowledged or not, they were part of the community. And so it's very important to know that when we're telling this story, we don't want to erase anybody. We don't want to exclude anybody. We are diverse, and our audiences should be just as diverse, and they are. And we want to increase the diversity of our audiences. We want everyone to be recognized and acknowledged. And folks know when the truth is being told even if we're not talking about it. They know when they hear a story and there's a large chunk missing. They might not make it obvious to you, they might not bring it to your attention, but in their absence, they're letting you know that you're not telling the whole story. And so we want to embrace everybody's truth because it's all part of the same story.
Looking back at, you said you were born here, you went to school here. What were you taught about history during your time of being in school here?
I was taught about the Europeans, the British, how this country formed, who came to these shores, who made the laws, and who was in charge and who was empowered. And in all of that, I never saw anything that had to do with me. And I was in search of what had to do with me. And that's hard on you because you're trying to find your value in building your own self-esteem and feeling a part of. And so from the classes that I took, from the time I walked in the school door, at the lunch table, recess, gym, I never felt a part of what was going on there. I went to school and participated because my mother said I had to, plain and simple, that it was good for me. But that was probably one of the most uncomfortable times in my life, even to becoming a teenager and leaving school.
Well, I know there are a lot of us that have those stories. I was in elementary school in the 80s in West Virginia, and I had the very, very similar experience. They would talk about history, and none of the history looked like me at all. I remember, I don't know if it was 1981 or 82, but they re-aired Roots on television again, because that was before everybody had VCR, so the only time you could see it again is if they re-aired it. And so I remember them re-airing Roots, and I remember coming into school as an elementary school kid, like a first or second grader, and white teachers coming up to me the next day and just saying, "I'm so sorry." And I didn't realize as a 7 or 8-year-old child what they were saying to me, but subconsciously it must have landed, because I became very ashamed of my history. They didn't want to talk about it, and when they did talk about it, it wanted to be quick, or they didn't think about it being connected to everything else. It was just something that we're now not talking about anymore. And looking back, I was a really depressed child, and I think it's for the very same reasons that you're talking about. I never felt like within the world that I was in that I was felt to belong, that there was, your history is your identity, and I was never shown my identity during my history lessons. So, if you're taught that your identity is not a part of your country, well, what does that tell you about the worth of your identity, or who you are? I remember spending my childhood wishing that all of my friends wouldn't see me as black, which no child should ever have to think. And then I became an adult, and it became that I need them to understand what it is that being black does to me on a daily basis. So it wasn't that I didn't want them to see me as black anymore. I needed them to see me as that, so that they could understand who I was and what I was experiencing. And living in areas that were predominantly white, that was my experience. But I used to love going to my dad's house or to family gatherings, and we'd all look the same, and we didn't argue about politics at the table. We didn't have to. There was a comfort in that, and I don't think I ever got that in my childhood in the way that I would have liked. I had friends that were very accepting of me, but not racially. I just never felt right. And I think that's the experience for a lot of people.
It is.
Right?
It is.
Just to give you all an idea, we kind of talked a little bit about what we were going to talk about here, but because we didn't know where it was going to go, once the camera started rolling, we were just going to let it go where it goes. So some of this Janice and I have talked about before as colleagues or talking about this piece, but we want to be as open and honest with you as possible. And in doing that, we don't know where we're going to go. But when you mentioned about childhood and dealing with your history and realizing that my experiences were very similar, I hear you and I see you. And I remember you were saying, I'm sorry as I was talking about it, and I'm sorry that you had to go through it too. That's not a state that any child should ever have to find themselves in. And which actually, funny enough, goes to the next question I have on the outline, because I was going to talk about why do we do this job? And mine, bottom line, is pretty simple, is that I don't want another black child to have to come to a place that is supposed to talk about their history, and for that child to not be able to see themselves. And not just see themselves within that history, but understand why they need to be proud of their ancestors surviving this history, so that they're here to be able to live their lives. Mm-hmm. Our ancestors went through so many hardships, and like you said, I shouldn't say life is hard, it's challenging. Our ancestors had it hard. And despite that fact, they had families. They loved, and they were able to survive and in sometimes flourish for us to be sitting here today, mm-hmm. having this conversation. That's why I do it. Why do you do it?
For a lot of the same reasons that you just said. Coming here and working here and listening to the history and the training sessions, reading books, listening to the conversation, watching people come here to visit when I was working in school in groups who came here because they knew for a fact that they were related to Patrick Henry and George Washington and all the other big powerful men. It made me wonder, okay, well, I've been here all my life. Well, who am I related to? Because you don't see any connection to the names written that's being shown to me. But those same names are here in this community, which are a part of my family. My grandfather, who used to always call me son, he would say, son, he knew I was a girl. But he would say, son, don't marry nobody in Virginia because everybody is your cousin. And I used to always think, what is this man talking about? And surely he was joking until I started to research and start digging and paying attention to things. And when I started to look on pages of families that are connected, when you're looking up your ancestry, I saw Peyton Randolph's picture. I saw Patrick Henry's picture. Thomas Nelson Jr. When I looked up the Canaday side, I saw John Tyler, Letitia Tyler. I've seen on some of the threads Hemmings and Woodson. I've seen Minkins, spelled one way, then Minkins, M-E-A-C-O-N-S. I've seen Byrd, Tazewell, Talaferro, Tolver, Pickett, Carter, Lee. All those names are part of my family lineage. And I looked at all the places, Upper Parish of James City County, Petsworth, which is Gloucester, Powhatan, spreading not just from here to Albemarle and beyond. I had to realize how big the area was. Then I had to realize, okay, when they talk about Green Springs, who was there? They're talking about the Battle of Williamsburg in 1862. Who did that include? I knew the population of this town. Over half this town was enslaved. So I started to think, okay, so what were they doing when this was going on? What were they thinking? How did they get those names that they have that are still here today? How did they think about the events? When I looked at the way people were naming their children, Edmund Pendleton Talaferro, a woman born in the 1860s and 1870s. Well, she surely didn't read a book with it in there, but she was hearing the names. She was hearing about the events. And I kept digging and kept digging, and then I had to shut myself away for a while because I just couldn't believe what I was seeing, because no one had ever told me any of this. No one. The day that I came across a paper that my grandfather, Randall Telefaro, it was a court paper, and he had had a horse taken away from him during the time of the war in the 1860s. And he was supposed to be compensated for it and never was. So there was some legal action going on afterwards. He was giving this testimony. And I saw the line that said, I didn't have my property because I was not yet free. And I looked at the date and was like, okay. And he says that his property was in his wife's name. And she worked just 6 miles away from the plantation that he was on. He worked for the Tuckers. And I thought, my God, okay, he was here. So it wasn't just a name. I have no picture, I have no image in my mind of what he looks like. In fact, most of my grandparents and great-grandparents, I have names. But thank God I have the names. Yeah. I don't have the pictures. You know, I can look on the census and see what they did, how much property they owned. But being here, I said, this is the last place I expected to find myself working. But events brought me here. But this is the place that's helping me to find out who I am. And so for me to be here is an opportunity to research, to learn, to put a value to the work and to the history of these people and to tell their stories. Because I'm not just Janice Canaday. You know, I am a Telefaro or a Tolver, whichever way they want to call it. I am a Carter, you know. So when I'm a King, I'm a Jones on the other side of the river. I'm a Lemon. So I'm Ellen. I'm Hannah, I found the papers where she had to pay, in the Chancery Court, she had to pay taxes on herself and her child and her cow that she owned. I am all those women wrapped up in one. So their experiences are part of my life. They are part of my DNA. And so I have to tell their story. And I have to make sure when it's not being told accurately or correctly, that a change is made. I have to make sure that the life that I've been afforded is worthy of the sacrifices and the struggles that they had to go through. So I can't just be here and make myself comfortable because with a half of a story, because it is half a story, I owe them. And actually we owe ourselves because we can't be the complete community and nation that we want to be until we come to the table and have those uncomfortable conversations and we reckon within ourselves and we hold ourselves accountable. We can't change anything that's been, but we can change going forward. And that's with the full truth and knowing the whole story. And sometimes that means we have to sit in those uncomfortable spots and learn to live with our discomfort. But it's just like anything else. If you want to heal, you have to acknowledge it. When you go to the doctor, you can't say, I've got this sore spot, but I don't want you to see it, don't want you to touch it, I just want you to give me something for it. And then when they give it to you, medicine might not taste like what you want, but you got to figure out a way to take it if you want to heal. Well, we have to sit and listen and talk to each other and embrace these stories and our truths and have the courage to hear from each other and to talk back. And we don't have to agree, but there's certain things that we have to come to a meeting point on if we're going to move forward as a country. And right here at Colonial Williamsburg is the best place to step off. Everybody looks to Colonial Williamsburg. If you pay attention, folks around us have embraced or attempted to embrace the truth and tell their stories differently and include all the perspectives. But we have to reach out to these communities that are still here, those families that are still here, canvass the communities and have an open conversation and let them take us back to that time when orally we sit there and we talked about who we were and told each other what wasn't written down or couldn't be written down but was told to us ear to ear, so to speak. Mm-hmm. That's important. And it's important for our children to know that regardless of what went on then, you have value and you are important. And when you come here, you can hold your head up. And when you leave here, you should be able to leave regardless of what your people group is that you descend from or your race or ethnicity, empowered to go on and meet the world head on, face to face, and know that you can do great things because those that came before you did great things.
So it's not just about teaching the story, it's about what do you do once you finally have this full knowledge.
Exactly. You can't just sit on it. There's a point where you have to act, and all of us are called to that.
Has getting the whole story out there been easy?
No. Easy is not a word that I would put to any part of this. You every day you pray. I did and I do every day. I pray before I go to work. I pray when I get there. I pray before I go home. You have to, because you don't know what you're going to meet. Because as impassioned as we feel about our story, there are other folks who feel impassioned about their perspective as well, because it's what they've been told. It's their foundation. It's what they've always had. And so to take bricks out of somebody else's foundation to establish mine, that causes an imbalance. And so I just tell myself, I don't know what I'm going to meet today, but I just ask my Creator to put the right words in my mouth, help me to say it with kindness and love, or help me just to listen if I just need to listen, and don't say anything. But most importantly, let me never let anyone walk away feeling that I've disrespected them and their beliefs.
What's been your biggest hurdle?
Just being accepted, not having to always explain myself or justify why I'm here or be qualified when my colleagues can be viewed by the same folks that are questioning me and not have to explain anything about themselves, but just be. That's the hardest thing.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. It's interesting, the things that people take for granted about our history because of how much we've been taught about it. But even though they know you and they may trust you, when you say something to them that doesn't seem to add up to what they've been taught, they always need you to give them an example, don't they? They always need something tangible. They're not going to trust you enough, despite your qualifications, that what you're saying to them is correct.
Is enough.
Yeah, is enough. And I mean, I know we've all here have had different ways of dealing with that, without a doubt. I know I've vented to you on numerous occasions. You've done the same with me.
Yeah.
And a number of us have done that. I didn't want to put Janice too much on the spot because I already knew the answer to that question, because we talk about our hurdles all the time, because Janice says it all the time. The only way that we are going to get through this, the only way that we're going to have this story told, the only way that we are truly going to have the humanity of our ancestors and therefore ourselves recognized is together. And I'm talking about here, at least in the foundation, those of us that are telling this story of the 18th century, that we're going to succeed together or we're going to fall together.
Exactly.
And with what's gone on in the world these days, which are not new things, they're just much more public now. You can't ignore it, and you can't act like these pieces of the history are not somehow related. You know, I feel if you are looking at the events of the last couple of months and can't understand why, then you need to go to a museum. And you need to go to a museum that tells a robust history of where we came from. I would hope that would be ours, but there are others that do so as well. Because when you see all of those points of view, all of those experiences, it answers the questions. You can learn the answers to everything today by being able to know what happened in the past and truly know what happens. Or at least that's what I believe. And when I'm having conversations with people, that's what I put out there. But I mean, do you feel the same on that?
I do. With the things that are going on today, it's more than disturbing. In my mind, it's just so easy to straighten this out if we're about doing the right things. It's not difficult. We can have trainings and offer up new information, but we have so much information. And information is out there. And the world that we have virtually today, the world that we have, social media, it is not hard to find information. But what do you do with it when you get it? Do you discard it? Do you accept it? Or you use it as a platform? The things that we're experiencing, they're not new. Things that happened years and years and years ago, or when my mother was coming along, or her parents, it's still with us. We might be calling it something else. It might look a little different. It's still there. You got people who are still waiting to be seen as whole human beings, people who've proven their worth, people who know their soul value, and they want to be allowed to live, to exist, to have, to progress. And they don't want walls put up anymore. Children who have been taught what our founding fathers said, made to study those documents in school, looking for those things to manifest in their lifetimes. But what are they facing? That is heartbreaking. And so it's important when we're telling these stories, when we're here at Colonial Williamsburg Foundation, we have to address that. We have to make it better for the next generation. We can't just leave it and hope that somebody picks up the baton and carries it on. We have to do that. And regardless of what the folks around us think or other foundations or whoever, we have to stand collectively in our truth because our power is in us as a collective unit, not little individuals saying something over here, somebody else doing something different over there. We have to come together and agree and commit to each other. We are a community together. Mm-hmm. We're not just a working community. We are a community together. This whole nation is a community. And every one of us need every one of us. And we have to start acting like it.
That's a tall order, isn't it?
It is, but it's not impossible. It's not impossible. We've been doing this all along. Because for every reason that I can find to be upset or disappointed, I have just as many reasons to feel hopeful. Because the folks that we work with and folks that don't look like you and I have always been part of our struggle. They've always been there helping to be in the trenches, digging and pushing. That's going on even today. Yeah. So there's a lot to be thankful for, but we just have to embrace it and make it our vision, our mission, at any cost.
Yeah. And having said that too, this is a very large foundation.
It is.
And a lot of our colleagues that look like us and don't look like us have been a part of helping to tell this story.
Absolutely.
But we have to be honest and admit that there are still individuals outside of here and also within our workplace. Our workplace isn't perfect. Well, I don't think anybody's workplace is perfect, no. That still don't understand why we're angry or why we feel like it's important or why the stories of our ancestors need to be a part of every single story that's being told. And, it's not often that people get a platform like this, and because we do, I'm going to go ahead and ask you, what would you say to those individuals around us, outside and internally within our workplace, that maybe are still having those doubts about the importance of our story?
I would ask them to do some self-reflection and ask themselves, if you have the full knowledge of knowing the stories that you embrace, in those stories, we were always there. And if you know that, then what is it about the content of our stories that makes you uncomfortable or makes you want to walk away from it and erase it? What is it that frightens you so that you don't want the whole truth to be told? Because those stories will shore each other up. They're not separate. They're all part of the same whole. So you have to go within yourself and ask, what is it? Truthfully, but be willing to face your truth. What is it? that keeps you from wanting to tell the story. When you come here to Colonial, when I came, let me speak for myself. When I came to Colonial Williamsburg, they told me what I was required to do. And I had to accept that. And I did accept that. So I go out there every day and talk about folks that don't look like me. But I talk about them with the knowledge that they're part of my community and part of my family and part of the reason that I'm even here. So those stories have to be told. They have to be, because those people are already there. You're not adding in, you're not creating anything. You're telling what's already there, what's already been written.
I promised Janice that I would not make her talk the entire time. So I'm going to give you a second to breathe. And on that subject, I'm going to share a story, and I won't use any names because it has to do with comments that we've gotten about the types of interpretations that we do here, most specifically the programs dealing with the African in Virginia, those are African American programs or black programs, whichever term someone prefers. It used to be my job to answer most of those guest reactions, many of them positive, many of them not. And the one that I will never forget is a particular guest who felt that we shouldn't need to tell the stories of enslaved people within Williamsburg, within America. Why are we putting so much importance on them? It would be, and this is exactly the analogy he used, he said it would be like 100 years from now reading a book about the person that was one of the window washers on a building. And why is the story of that person that important? And my answer to that came pretty immediately, which is, if that window washer is your father, or your mother, or your sister, or your uncle, isn't their story important to you? Or let's go a step further. If that person is you, don't you want to be remembered? Don't you want for those that come after you to look at what it is that you did with your life, the way that you lived it, the way that you loved, the way that you were with family? Don't you want them to look at that and remember? Don't you want your descendants to be able to say your name and smile when it comes out of their mouths? Your story is important. No matter what you've sent to me or the letter that you've sent, just like 100 years from now, a window washer, which by the way, there is no job that's unimportant in this world. That window washer's job is just as important as the job that I do, the job that we do. Without everyone doing their part within this country, it doesn't run. And you don't see out of a window if it's not washed. That person's story is important to someone. And I honestly believe it's important to all of us, because how do we understand ourselves if we're only looking at the history of 2 to 3 to 4% of the population, the people that had a lot of money and therefore had the time to write down what happened in their lives? Not saying their stories aren't important, and they are. We talk about them all the time. But that other 90-some% of middling, poor whites, blacks, free and enslaved, the others, the American Indians, the LGBTQ+, all of the representation that was actually here in the 18th century, and they were all here. Every single one of their stories is important. If we're really going to understand who we are, why we're here, and what do we want to be
as we go forward.
What do we want our legacy to be? I mean, I know this was originally going to be about community, and it is, but we also called it legacy. And I guess I'll ask you the question, because I think I asked it when I did our 40th anniversary oral history interviews, but when you are looking back at your life, what do you want your legacy to be?
I want to be remembered for trying to create a whole community, a whole nation. I want to be and leave a legacy where I was the kind of person that would listen to anyone, that appreciated the value in everybody, and that would look for the value in everybody. I want to look at everyone's child like I look at my children. I want my children to look at other people the same way. I want to be able to sit at the table with people that I've never sat at the table before and feel welcome. I want to walk into a room. I want my children to have the legacy of walking into a space and feeling safe and not suspect. I want them to feel valued and appreciated. I want them to feel worthy. And I want them to make other people feel worthy. I want them to lend a hand to helping folks to come along, not be left behind. I want them to care if someone that doesn't look like them has something to eat or a safe place to be or a roof over their head or can get proper medical care. I want them to be able to be educated, sit in a park if they want to. I want them to have all those things, that peace, that prosperity, the good health, and the right just to exist and be their whole, full self and not have to apologize. I want that to be the legacy. I don't want there to be any more of the casual killing of the Negro on the street. That's so far back there, but it's made its way into our world today. There are legacies that have traveled from time to time that are with us today. I want to be positive things, if that makes any sense at all. I just want us to be able to breathe and not explain to be that. I don't want us to have everything about us legalized and put into a bill. You know, I want to wear my hair the way it is now because that's what nature did and not apologize for it. You know, I want to be able to be comfortable in my skin because I have to operate with the uniform that was issued to me. I don't want to apologize for being black because I love being black. But there's a white girl inside here too. There's part of a Native American girl in here too. I want to be able to be all those pieces that are me, and I want the legacy to be that everybody's child, whether they're German or Italian or a Mexican, Native American, whatever. I want them to have the full opportunity and right to just simply be. I want that to be our legacy.
Beautifully put. We should probably have like 2 hours to talk and to give you all out there watching the opportunity to comment as well. And if you feel like that's something we need to do here and these conversations need to continue, please let us know. Please reach out to us, because I truly think that this is something that I feel we need to do. But only if it's truly something that is helping. The truth of the matter is, I don't feel safe in this country. And I never have. And its legacy. And no amount of someone telling me it's not true, or that it's not a facet of our society or what it was built on, is going to erase the memories of men in trucks calling me the N-word on the street and then chasing myself and my cousin down the neighborhood with us not knowing what they want to do to us. That's not going to change seeing members of the Ku Klux Klan in full uniform walking down the main street of Charleston in the middle of the day, not even having to worry about it at all. And these experiences that I've had in my life, they're not isolated. They are who we are. And I think we have to be honest with ourselves about the fact that we all have something to answer for. We're all hypocrites in some way, shape, or form. I am. But we also try to be better. That, I think, was truly the legacy of America, or what it was meant to be. It's that one line, more perfect union, which is a misnomer, but it really is about always becoming better. Mm-hmm. It's not about being the perfect country. It's about doing what is necessary to become that perfect country. And who knows if we'll ever get there, but we have to try. Yeah, we have to try. Our lives matter. Every single person out there watching, your lives matter. These conversations are hard. It's like challenging. These conversations are challenging. And what I'm going to say is reach out. Try to learn more. But also understand that if you've gotten to a point now where you're needing to ask these questions and wanting to gain understanding, look back on your own history and your own relationships, especially with your black friends, and see if these are things that they've said to you before. Because you may ask them the question now, meaning to really understand, but in a lot of times it's putting the burden on us to explain something that we've tried to explain so many times before, and though you didn't mean to, we felt minimized. And sometimes we just need a rest. But when we gain opportunities in this country, we have to take them. So we may want to rest, but we can't.
Got to keep going.
Ask those questions, but be willing to show that you are wanting to move forward. Don't just understand and go, yes, I hear you. Doing something about it, being a part of that solution, is what will truly heal us, I think. And please understand, we are not every black person. Our relationships, our upbringings, our experiences are all different. People, when we enter some places, look at us the same. That's an honest truth. But we all have different feelings and thoughts. And we say it all the time here. I'm never going to tell another black person in America how to be black in America. We've all figured out our manners to live in this place and survive, and sometimes literally survive. And the last thing I'm going to do is tell someone else that looks like me that's had to deal with a lot of pain in their life how they should be dealing with it. But I'll tell you this. We have to be together if we want to truly take those opportunities that we're given and turn them into building what it is that this country is really supposed to be. We could go on, like I said, for hours and hours and hours. And I'm not going to give myself the last word. I'm going to, before signing off with the last words, ask Janice, is there anything else that you would like to say or would like people to know or would like to express in this time? Because I respect your words so much, so I want to hear you say more.
I just want to say these conversations are hard, but they're necessary. And only honesty and truth is going to take us where we want to go. There's always going to be good and bad in the world. Always. My mother used to tell me to always try to give everybody a blank slate. Get to know people on your own. Fellowship with folks. Talk to them. Step outside of your box of safety and comfort and just get to know a person, human being to human being. Forget the wrappings and talk to folks. Good and bad will always exist. Just don't let bad have the last word.
Doing good does not take a major action. Sometimes the smallest things that you do on this earth and the tiniest kindnesses that you give to someone whose life you might not understand or might not know or might even be afraid of can do so much to help that person understand that you see them and that their humanity means something. If you do just that small thing in your life, you will have started that journey of making this place better. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot more needs to be done, but you have to start somewhere. We all have to start somewhere. And Janice and I, because of the color of our skin, we don't get a choice whether we want to do it or not. We have to, or else how are we going to live? How are we going to be with our families, and how are we going to make a better life for those that come after us than the ones that we had before, which is basically what everybody wants for the most part.
We all want the same.
We all want the same thing. If you want more of these conversations, please let us know. Please talk to each other. Please try to listen and understand. I will tell you personally, what I need more than anything else is for people to listen. And I mean truly listen. There are few other more kindnesses for me than to know that I'm seen and that I'm heard and that I am a man, that I'm a person. Please be kind to each other in your time, and we'll continue to be here when we're back open again. Please join us. Please ask us questions. Please reach out. We are here to help you. In helping you, we help ourselves, and we help this country. So reach out, please. Thank you, and good day to everyone.